I think I first had a moment like this with the first news painting I did with the pink background. Also the first oil painting that I did. And part of it came about because I was just really bored and tired of painting this rope and all the like links or knots or whatever you want to call them, twists in the rope. And I was probably like 60 to maybe closer to 70% like finished painting it. And I just had like the outline left. Like I don't know how many links were left in that outline. 30%, I guess, approximately. And I was asking myself and others, do I really need to finish painting all those little sections? We all know what this is. Everybody knows what this is. Do I really need to continue painting all of this? Because I think that you get the same feeling. Or a similar enough feeling. And me completing it, I don't know if it significantly changes the feeling enough to bother doing it. And I could be spending that time on a different painting. And I did finish it, and I'm happy that I finished it. I felt good about finishing it. And it felt complete. I'm happy with that choice, but that was one of the first times that I had this kind of idea of like, how finished does it need to be? Because if you understand, if the meaning is there, why does it need to be as complete? And I kind of tossed it around to myself for a bit, but I didn't have a resolution. I think it's just piece by piece. I know when it's done, and I just kind of decided to stick with that rather than trying to come up with a way to figure out if I can leave certain pieces unfinished and then not, and like create my own structure and boundaries around it. I was like, I'll just get there when I get there. I'll figure it out when I get there. The reason that I'm bringing this up today is because I have a whole bunch of portraits that I've done recently in the small makeshift storage room studio since the flood. So I think it's been interesting, and I'm not going to show you all of those, but I did a bunch of them very quickly. And I think it's interesting just because I don't know how much of it is the space influencing that or the fact that I won't have the space for as long, or I don't know how long I'll have this makeshift space before I don't have any space for months. Like, I just don't know. Just with the state of the basement flooding and like the repairs that need to be done and stuff. But are also kind of just, I don't know if it created a sense of urgency, because at first there was just loss and grief and frustration and being really overwhelmed and stressed about it. And then I just started I've been working on a couple of different things, but one of them is, this body of work that I've been putting together for like the past 2 years or so. That's like a self-portrait body of work, and some of those pieces I took a long time. There's an oil painting that's a self-portrait that is the most realistic painting or drawing or piece of art I think that I've ever done, and that was also with oil paint, so that was quite an achievement that I'm really happy with. I'm really proud of that work, and you can see the ability is there to do those things. And there are some times where I think about the movie Basquiat, and I think of how the way they portrayed one of these interviews that apparently was inspired by a real interview that he had, and it was very much it was not a good experience from the sounds of it. And he talks about how like the interviewer is kind of asking questions about these paintings and like, why is it that Basquiat chooses to depict them so like they're unrefined? And I think the response that he said was, I don't know very many refined people, right? So that always stuck with me, is like, hey, it's not about ability, it is about the choice, and you are choosing to express things in a very specific way for a specific purpose, or you're letting yourself be really, really loose, again, for a specific purpose, because it will communicate something differently than, that one portrait, that self-portrait that I'm talking about with oil, and it's like very much realistic versus other pieces that I'm going to show you now. But I think part of this is just me wanting to externally process and figure out how I feel about things. I think I know where I'm landing with how I'm feeling about the work that I'm doing lately. And a lot of this has to do with like the it being out of me, it being on the outside is the purpose. So if I think about like quantity over quality, that's really the question that this comes down to. I think right now for me, and I'll maybe get more into this, but I do think that quantity is quality right now, in the sense that quantity means that there are finished pieces, and those finished pieces being outside of my planning book, outside of myself, means that has value. The quantity of work right now is the quality of the work. Not that there's so many that creates value. It's just the pieces that I already have planned within me, the pieces that come forward and present themselves as ideas, and then I can turn them around quickly. That is valuable, and that is something that has a quality to it. And I'll show you some of the pieces that I'm discussing as to why this was floating in my head recently, and not all of them, but there's 3 that I brought with me to show you. So this is very small, as you can see. Yeah, this must be 8 by 10, I'm guessing. It is called Johnny Gage No Longer. I don't want to go through and discuss like every single piece in like thorough detail, but I think this is one too where I'll bring it closer here so you can kind of see. But this references Phineas Gage, and it was a very, very quick drawing, and I had a reference photo of myself, and it actually is decently true to that reference photo as far as like my facial expression goes and stuff, and the body is of a reference photo of Phineas Gage, which you can probably find. It's a very popular one. It's black and white. He's holding the rod that went through his skull and therefore changed his personality, basically, and mental ability. Definitely, yeah, basically just like an accidental lobotomy. I don't know like what you call it, but Phineas Gage. If someone doesn't know how I'm spelling the last name Gage, it's Gage, and I think that's the reference that if someone catches, they can go and look and then figure all these things out that I just told you. But as for just like how quick that was done, part of me is like, oh no, is it incomplete because I did it so fast? And I think when it comes down to like abstracts, it was easier for me to say like, no, this wasn't done in just 15 minutes. This was done in like 10 years and 15 minutes, or 15 years and 15 minutes, or however long it's been since I've really considered myself an artist. And that's usually the response I would give. But when it comes to something that's a little more recognizable, like the human figure, I think that people have an expectation that if it's representational, that it should be representing that subject in a specific way, and with realism automatically supposed to come quality rather than the feeling and the other choices that can be involved. Like with abstract, we don't have that pressure to depict something in a specific way because it is non-objective and not figurative. So that pressure isn't there. But then when you start working with the body and faces and whatever, and beforehand when I was trying to be more realistic but just play with colors a lot and never do natural skin tones, like there's this element that's always been there of like, I don't care. I don't need it to be as photorealistic as possible because that doesn't matter for me, for my stuff. Anyway, this is called The Space Where Words Have Not Yet Been Invited. It looks better upside down, honestly. I'll give you both views because why not? If you're watching this, you get a little extra. And this actually was an accident. So this is a little Bob Ross moment where I did this with paint marker. It was, again, really quick. I really liked what I did. But when I tried to put the finish on it, it all just started dripping and just running. Like, it reacted with the paint marker really poorly when I tried to put this really nice finish on it. And so, yeah, it all just started just like streaming down. And I still liked how it looked, and so I still kept it. And I think it still has the feel that I wanted it to have when I gave it the title and decided it was done. Here is another impromptu piece that is on a furnace filter. So, yeah, that was not a plan as to like, oh, this piece is going to go on a furnace filter, let me find one. It was that there was a furnace filter that was supposed to go out to the garbage, and I saw it, and I was like, I think I should use that for something. And then I took it downstairs, and then a day or two later, I needed to do a portrait, and I had a friend give me some spray paint, so I already had a bunch of spray paint anyway, but I used the stuff that he gave me, and they were very specific colors, so that's what I used. And then I started running out of that spray paint, and then I just had to improvise with some ink. So, yeah, I like what's going on. I like what the filter can represent. And, like, that's what the back looks like. But, yeah, this is spray paint and ink. And, again, another reference photo of myself that I've used. Pain, a Powerful Ally in Living is the title of that. But, again, I think, like, total time that I spent working on all three of those pieces is probably going to be under 2 hours, right? And I think that I don't know how many hours I spent painting that oil painting that's much more realistic and representational of myself, that if someone saw that and if they had ever seen a picture of me in the last 2 years, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's John. So, again, I think I've come to this place right now, and this will evolve and change and fluctuate, but right now I think that for me, getting the work out of myself in a way that still evokes emotion and feeling, that's always the goal, is for someone to have the poetry of the words, of the title, and combine that with the feeling that the piece gives them, with textures and color and composition, movement, like all those elements and principles of design and art. Not just like, again, it's like, you can tell this is a face. Do you need to know that it's my face? In the context of the show, there would be an artist statement that talks about that. The title references that. But it doesn't need to be instantly recognizable as that person. Because is it about this person? Yes, but it's about this feeling, right? These are about these feelings about not feeling yourself, about wrestling with identity, about discussing mortality, about, talking about mental health. And so I think that all these pieces still can give you that opportunity to reflect on those things and discuss those things with yourself and others. And that, to me, is the point. And again, I think to get to this place where, and I'm not saying that I'm going to get, none of this is like purposeful. Part of it is just like my environment, my studio has changed. That forces my practice to change automatically. If I try to force myself to work the way that I was in a different space, I'd be really battling myself unnecessarily and not just being process-oriented and just going with it, which I need to be, which I strive to be anyway, but I definitely need to be now, or else I'm not going to make any work in the situation. And I think that, that again, it wasn't purposeful. I'm not saying that this is going to continue, but I am happy making this work. It makes me happy. I feel accomplished, and I feel accomplished because the work itself still has value, and I think it is still strong work. The time that it took, the size of the work is not immense in either regard, but I don't think that needs to diminish the quality.